People of the world, welcome to Send It Rising. Oh me, oh my. You've heard me say it so many times, and yet I'm going to say it again. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in them. I know it seems like a chaotic universe. It really does. And yet there is order to the chaos. And our guest today is a profound magician. How dare I use that word? Magic with a K. He's a manifester. He's very cool. He's super smart. And we had this wonderful interview last time that I'm still thinking about. There's still moments from that interview that remain with me, and actually a conversation we had after the fact. We had a wonderful conversation talking about how January is, because the energy is beginning to increase, i.e., the amount of sunlight is beginning to increase. The sun has risen, if you will. All spiritual traditions, kind of recognize that special time, and it's so important to rest and to reflect. And maybe instead of like grinding out in the gym at 9 p.m., during January, maybe we need a little bit of, mental grinding, if you will, which is to say, give that brain a little bit of glucose, chill out, and let it do its thing, project into the future what it is that you want. Our guest today, not only is he brilliant, he's also a master hypnotist, among a million other things, which, would take me years to explain. You're in for a real treat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, the man himself, Brian Balke.
Thank you, Kellen.
And we got the muting
I don't
thing.
have anything to drum on, dude. I don't know
Don't
what
worry about it. So try to check your mic, because your mic is off. So do your little mic switcheroo. So
Okay.
before the show, as sometimes happens, Brian's microphone was not working, and it takes 5, 4, 3, 2,
Hello,
1
Kellen.
seconds to fix it. See? Bingo. Brian, talk to me about January, the rising energy.
Well, let's start with the era of reflection. And I had a friend of mine post something in December, and he was giving us some advice to project us into the new year. And so this relates to that intention, which is setting new goals for the new year. And what he said, he showed a picture of himself um, that showed how his exercise program had manifested for him. And this is a guy that when he came into my office 2 years ago, he was pasty and had no muscle definition, very little muscle tone. And this guy now is stacked, huge pecs. He's got thighs that are like overflowing over his knees and everything like that. And he was saying that I wasn't sure that I could do this, but I just told myself I will do this. I had this willpower and I stuck with it. And this is how I ended up in terms of my physical improvement program. And what I'm not sure he remembers is that when he came in to start this program, he did what's called a Focus for Success session with me. And this is a non-therapeutic process where I just take people into trance. And before I do that, I tell them, you've got three aspects to this problem. You've got the social aspect. What are other people thinking? What's motivating you? How is this going to manifest and empower you to have better relationships in the world around you? Okay. There's the physical aspect, which is actually the activities that you're doing, whether your body's supplying you the energy you need. And then there's the spiritual aspect. And this is this part of you that knows that you can manifest that goal and what it's going to be like when you get there. Because what happens is that the part of your body that supplies you energy and lets you accomplish great things, if it doesn't know that reality, it is got a confidence problem. Can I do this as well as everything else that you're asking me to do right now? And so I get people into trance and I get all three parts of the personality to look at this problem. And I say, we're going to let your soul, which doesn't know time, reach out into the future and figure out how to connect who you are now to who you want to be. That's what kickstarted the process for him. This is where this will came from, which is that his body knew already what it was going to be like to be that person. It had
Mm,
bridged through time to do that.
mm,
So when we sit down in January and the IRS tells us we have to figure out whether we've been successful or not,
mhm.
okay, quite often what we're doing is we're focusing on the material aspect of things. But as you know, Kellen, a lot of how you manifest in the world and have achieved success in the world is actually organized around grounding yourself in spiritual energy. And that's an important, that's a very important thing to do. And spiritual energy doesn't shout at you, does it?
Yeah, I love these interviews. They're so much fun to me. So yes, there's something called Samadhi, which I've always been fascinated with. And half of it to me is parlor trick, and the other half is like the most profound thing. That's the paradox of Samadhi to me, because there are some people. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Samadhi is a state. I want to say it's either a Sanskrit word or it comes out of Hindu culture, where it refers
Hmm.
to basically like eyes going into the back of your head and some
Turning
of the
inwards almost literally.
yeah, exactly. Thank you. And and some of the stories are they'll put a mirror in front of the nose of the person who's in samadhi and there's no fog. It's like they just completely the body just goes whoop, and the idea is that the soul exits and then the body is in some sort of like paralysis. I don't know how, just whatever you call it. Anyway, and there was a
It's in
album.
perfect rest, is what it's, I think
Okay,
is
thank
one
you.
way.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. All right, that's a yeah, thank you. This is why I love having you as a guest. So call it Perfect Rest. And there was this album from one of my favorite bands ever live called Secret Samadhi. And it's just yeah, so this idea of sort of extending your soul out. And so when you talk about January and like the soul knows, it's almost like you're like a samadhi professional to me, because that's what hypnotism is in my translation of how my mind chooses to look at it. It's like you're helping people into that state where the soul
Right.
can go do whatever the soul needs to go do. It's like because true freedom is something that I think a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I'd love to have true freedom," but it's like true freedom is anything manifests at any time, and it just it goes away and like there's a dragon and now there's a thing. It's like it's this state, and it seems so attractive, but the reality of it is, anything can show up. And are you prepared for that? And so you're sort of like a shaman guide through that whole process. Is that true, or am I just
That
making stuff up?
yeah, and the thing that is a challenge with that is that the way that most people define success is based upon what other people tell them success is.
Mhm.
So in January, when we go into this process and we're projecting for the next year, we're thinking about what other people are telling us. So our attention is focused outwards rather than this samadhi state, which is that we're looking at what really is our reality.
Mm.
And the thing that happens when you go into that spiritual awareness, spirituality, if you remember from the last time I think I mentioned this, is the negotiation of the boundaries between I and we. And so what happens is that you're going into this state where you're aware now of the fact that other people around you are projecting standards of success upon you which serve their needs. This is what karma is. Okay, it's the conventions of the world where everybody's trying to serve their needs. And there's this dimension, which is the spiritual dimension, where when you are projected outwards for your definition of success as a house and money and blah blah blah, security and guaranteed security in the long term, everything like that. This is all based upon strict structures that other people have created.
Mm.
And in focusing outwards for our success, when we get to January, quite often what we find is that we have been ignoring our bodies. We've been eating sugary substances because that keeps our brain going as to where we're able to continue to imagine things with other people. Because all our brain really cares about is glucose. All it cares about is sugar. Okay, and that enables it to keep the synapses firing and to reclaim the neurotransmitters so that they can keep on doing their work and everything like that. Now, the thing is that when we begin to turn inwards in these moments and start thinking about what we need to do to take care of ourselves, and we begin to listen in December to how our body's actually doing, okay, it tells us, you're using up the resources internally. So what we do is we make new plans. We make new plans to go on out and exercise more, to spend more time with loved ones. And the way that we do that is we look at where we're wasting time. And what we fail to appreciate is that when we're in this high stress mode of trying to succeed according to other people's standards, we are in stress. And in stress, when we're in metabolic stress, our body is building up toxins. And that wasted time is actually when the body is resting and trying to clear out those metabolic toxins. So now you say, I'm going to take my wasted time and I'm going to go to the gym. What the body ends up saying is, hold on, boss, what the hell are you doing to me? So if you're going to start an exercise program, what you do is you figure out when you have energy right now in your day, and you add a little bit of exercise to it. And you ask the body, you declare this intention to the body. I want to try to add this someplace into our schedule. Okay. And it knows what the experiences of it is like. It knows how much energy it takes. And so now it begins to think about, how can I provide this to the conscious mind? Is to where we can do all the things that we're doing and add this. And you ask it to find a place in the day where it can supply you the energy. And so it begins to put that into the planning process, which occurs when you're asleep at night. Okay. And again, this is all part of, as a hypnotist, when you talk about this engagement I create with people, is that as long as you're in conflict with your body, you can't be in alignment with other people. When you're in conflict with your body, you're blocked from really deep spiritual connection, because what you're bringing into that spiritual space is conflict with yourself, and you're demanding from other people resolution for the fact that you're not taking care of yourself. So you've got to learn how to do this and take care of yourself before you can actually enter into deep spiritual engagement.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good because here's a good example from my life that I'm reminded of listening to you. So my hip, I've got a hip nerve issue.
Hmm.
Standing makes it feel much better. But I have, as you mentioned earlier, societal pressure to sit, and there's a lot of it. Like you said, for dinner, you don't stand for dinner. Who stands for dinner? That's weird. You don't go out to eat and stand there. Who would do that? That makes no sense. I feel
Taco trucks, dude.
say what now?
Taco trucks.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
said a
big
taco
thing in
truck, right?
LA.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Like, where are we going tonight? We're gonna do a fancy anniversary dinner at this taco truck. Um, but I know for a fact that standing feels like right now, for those of you that are watching live or after the fact on YouTube, you see that I'm standing and I'm literally pacing back and forth and pacing. And that took me a minute. It also took me a minute on my morning meetings too. And my voice is going to start sounding weird because this is what I do in my morning meeting. And for those of you who can't see me, I'm just pacing around in a circle, pacing around in a circle. And because I own the company, I can get away with it. But I'm not sure if I'd be comfortable as an employee doing that. That might be weird because it's not. So talking about those self-imposed structures or societally imposed structures, oh yeah, they are real for sure. And then what you mentioned about, if I'm standing, I am in such a better mood. I'm just in a better mood. I'm less cranky. I'm less irritable. I'm way more responsive. I can listen. I'm doing exactly what my body's asking me to do. So yeah, I am constantly in that sort of that balance. And that's kind of a gross example of what you're talking about. But I think there are probably tons more you could mention.
So there's, this is the simple, which is just, in terms of choosing new goals and manifesting new goals. Okay, as you're talking about, you're starting a new company and you're choosing to organize your activity in a way that is compatible with your physical needs. Okay. Now, what that means is that when you project yourself in relationship to other people, again, I'm just summarizing what you said. When you project yourself into relationship with other people, you are more open to them. You're not focused on yourself. So you're building better relationships and you're open to more possibilities in those relationships. And even this pacing around thing, okay, you are exploring space. This is a physical metaphor for exploring opportunities to be able to pace and move around. So everything that you're doing in this situation, what you're doing physically, is a metaphor for what you're doing spiritually. And one of the things that I think that we're struggling with as a society, which is very, very, a very, very difficult challenge for us, is that we've had, and
Like,
we have,
sorry, Brian, you cut out there for about 4
okay,
seconds. Can you repeat what you said?
okay. What we've had as a society is a set of conventions, which is that we always need to be moving forward.
Mhm.
And obviously, if you were always moving forward, you knock your camera over. Okay, there are times when we need to turn around and look and see what's behind us. When we need to rest. This is why the New Year, the Christmas, and then or the holiday season, what we call the holiday season, is so important for people to stop, to slow down, to rest, to consider their relationships with other people, to look behind them at those that are supporting them, okay, and figure out how to re-engage with them so that you're committed to moving forward together in the new year as new opportunities arise. But what we've had in our society, and in there's a hustle culture, which is really self-exploitative, where people are just moving all the time. They're always moving forward, and they use various different kinds of artificial supplements and and substances in order to try to keep this process where they're always moving forward. And this is the culture that we've had as a species, particularly in America, always moving forward. And what's happened is just as we build up metabolic waste in our body when we're always moving forward and forcing ourselves to move forward, we've built up an enormous amount of ecological waste in the system. And this burden is presenting itself to us in ways which are very, very damaging and set and threaten to destabilize the whole system. So there's a feedback mechanism coming onto us. And I'm one of the concerns that I have, and I know that you've got a spiritual focus, but how present do you feel this in terms of the way that you think about your life and where it's headed?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the things that I want to get involved in, so first of all, the symbolism or the metaphor of hustle culture equals internal toxins. We are, look, coffee is a drug, and
You know
we're
the specific mechanism of coffee?
no
What coffee does is when you're using your brain during the day, you wake up in the morning, there's there's a
certain quantity
waste
of.
product. There's a waste product, metabolic waste product, which builds up in your brain. And that's what kind of makes you foggy headed and things like that. And it's one of the things that participates in helping you fall asleep at night is
Mhm,
this buildup. Your brain is saying, I'm tired, I'm filling up with waste. Coffee blocks that signal.
mhm.
It says, ignore the fact that your brain is filling up with waste.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. And so it's almost to me the fact that we are all of us are 100% fine with coffee all of the time. It's, it's like, oh, it's a joke. And it's like, oh, drink coffee. And then rarely one of us on like a Reddit thing will be like, I don't drink coffee, and it seems really weird that all of these like coffee zombies wake up in the morning and they all need it. And like, how is this not an addiction? And why are we all fine with this? And they're sort of like blue pill, red pill, woke up from the matrix, And I'm a big tea drinker, and I'm in full honesty, I'm back on a coffee thing right now, which is why I'm talking about it
Hmm.
because it's like a tool in my toolbox, if that makes sense. Because I'm doing all of this stuff at work. So I got sick right in January. I got through that, and now I am burning the candle at both ends. I'm aware of the fact that I'm doing it, and I'm doing it. I'm kind of on purpose because I'm doing all this stuff at work. That's just like it, and I want that drug to help me kind of like do all
Right.
these things because I'm going it's intentional, right? Um, but that being said, your metaphor of the body and its waste products to do this hustle grind thing, which obviously has huge ramifications physically and spiritually. I have always and will always stand up from on high in every platform I possibly can and let everyone know that the earth is alive. Alive. If you took a gigantic space knife in the weirdest example of all time and cut the earth, all this red hot stuff would come pouring out of it, right? And then it would harden on the surface of it. And if you get rid of enough of this red hot stuff on the inside of the earth, the whole thing dies. We
Right.
die, all the bacteria on the earth die. We're the bacteria in this example. So, I mean, it's an organism, right?
Right.
And that to me has been completely lost, right? Because if you looked at a human being the same way we look at the earth, we'd be like, oh, it's just a manifestation of biological processes. It's not alive. Look at the human, like it has no free will. Like, and so I think at the core of our species, that's where we're going wrong. A lot of astronauts. There's this amazing Will Smith documentary where they call it the observer effect. They say
Mhm.
if you're on the International Space Station for long enough, you see the cell that is the Earth. You see it as a
Mhm.
cell. It's an organism, and you see the way that it interacts, and like the plumes of dust that come off the Sahara, and then they hit the ocean, and there's these gigantic algae that grow
Right.
off these little dust, and they produce all
Right.
this oxygen, and you can see the way it kind of um, lives, right? You just see the way
Right.
it's living
You
and
can see the
moving,
organic processes unfolding before you in
unfolding
real
it
time.
before your very eyes
Right.
because you stepped out. You see the different sides of it, the way the whole organism operates. And
So let
that
me
to me is lost. So go ahead. That's my
let me
big
let
thing.
me
Is like,
let me
let's
let
show
me just
people.
let me just go up another level for you.
Sure.
Okay. I have a privileged perspective, and I find myself in situations sometimes that really surprise me.
Mm,
And quite often this happens in the middle of night or on midnight, and I wake up and I'm just kind of like in this situation where I feel personalities that are engaged in dialogue with me.
mm.
And so one night I woke up kind of, and I'm in this big diffuse ball, and I'm okay. Here's this big diffuse ball, and I'm just waiting. What's this all about? Why am I here? And so this personality comes in that was watching and trying to see what I was going to do when I was in this big diffuse ball. And it kind of like takes me by the hand. And we cross through this huge void. And we come to this tiny moat. And what it said to me was, this is the most important place in my realm because it is only here that life is found. And I want to help. But if I make even the slightest mistake, everything will be destroyed. I need people to guide me. And this is the perspective that I bring to the work that I do. Okay, which is that there there has been this sun out there gifting energy to the world for 3.5 billion years. In the Bible, let there be light is photosynthesis. It's not the Big Bang. Forget that. It's photosynthesis. It's a compact between the sun and the living things on earth. It gives the sun purpose and meaning. And the sun is grateful for that because otherwise there's just all this dead stuff around it. So what happens is it's been pumping energy into forms of life that are far simpler than us. And there are patterns of behavior in the ecology of bacteria and trees and things like that that we tend to take for granted, and we're not concerned with their needs. And they have an enormous amount of energy stored up in those patterns of behavior. You look at your your medallion, okay, I forgot, for the bagra, okay, and the different forms of life, the different ecosystems, swamp, forest, things like that, okay. That's why that's important. Okay, those are different patterns of engagement with life, with the sun, okay, and how life expresses itself. And when we sit in the middle of that, humanity, and this is the issue in Christianity as well, do we have dominion or are we stewards of the earth? The same question. When we sit in the center of life and we apply our intelligence to understand the way that it operates and we help to guide it, then that energy is entrusted to us. And these challenges that we've created for ourselves by running forward and trying to be human and ignoring the rest of the ecology now become susceptible to solution. And this is why I am here. Okay. Fundamentally, you talked about me being a magician, okay, and or being magic. Okay. This is why I am here is to make people aware of the fact that this is the way out of the problems that exist. Is to stop focusing only on ourselves. And there's a really interesting phenomenon that occurs, which is when you stop focusing on yourself and focus on the community or the ecology, you're no longer pushing against resistance. And I know that we've all had this experience at rare moments in our life where we just feel welcomed in a situation. We feel ourselves being pulled into it, and just this energy and opportunity being liberated to us. Okay, this is what a mother does when she births a child into the world. Okay, there's this projection of will that you be brought into the world and manifest in the world. This is the gift of love that a mother brings. Okay, when she brings a child into the world. But it occurs at other moments in our life. And I have to have had the good fortune having been in this situation where I've been paying attention to these issues and trying to be sensitive to the needs of things that are smaller than me, that don't have voices, that don't know how to talk. Okay, I've been doing that for a long time, of knowing that there is this potentiality, that there is this pulling forward, and all we have to do is wake up to it. And this applies in business as well. Okay, which is when you are paying attention to your body, the body is the tool that lets you know when other people are receptive to you and they're pulling you towards them. Those signals come up in terms of like this intrinsic energy which just is liberated within your body, which really has to do with not being resisted any longer, not having to push against resistance. So this is what I do with my clients as a hypnotherapist. Is I try to create this space of unconditional love around them. I bear witness to them. I help them to identify the internal resistance within them. Okay. And deal with that internal resistance where the parts are not working together, and then liberate them into awareness of both the fact that socially you can act in ways which minimize resistance, and also spiritually you can be sensitive to resources that you are not aware of when you're focused on yourself, and that those resources want to flow through into the social domain back and forth. And that what we're really meant to do is, a species, with our intelligence, is to flow back and forth between human and the ecosystem to help to guide the ecosystem into more sustainable and creative modes of existence.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I mean, one of the things, so after the last episode, Brian shared that sun dream manifestation story with me, and that's what stuck with me this whole time from our conversation. And earlier I said things he said on air. It was actually what he said off the air that stuck with me the most. And so I'm glad you shared that particular story now, because I mean, that's far out, dude. You know what I'm saying? That's a far out story. And so
Well, I hope it's a hopeful story.
yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's
Okay.
beautiful because
I think that a lot of young people are looking for hope. And when we look for hope and guidance from our elders have been doing things that aren't working. They really have been. And the burden of finding a new way forward, but there is support there. Okay. And we have to take the time to rest and harvest the lessons from the past. As a species, we have to take that time to rest. So I would hope that everybody would look at the period that we're entering into as kind of a holiday of the species, to look and rest and understand what hasn't been working.
mm,
Okay. And to try to connect to those things that are resisting us,
mm,
that we're disrupting the ecosystem, we're disrupting the bacteria, we're disrupting the trees, and those psychic patterns out there are resisting us. Okay. But when we go and sit in the center of the Bagra and try to be a negotiator between these different patterns of existence, because they are also fundamentally in conflict, and we create harmony among them, then the resistance disappears.
yep. And if anyone ever wants to experience a physical manifestation of what Brian's talking about, there's something called Quicho in Mandarin, which means push hands, which is this phenomenal exercise. I was 18 when I did it the first time. And what it's taught me over the last 20 years, 19 years, is you can apply like 2 ounces of force to like an oncoming, like someone who's pressuring you, pushing you, trying to like tackle you down. But it has to be just so accurate. If you accurately
Right.
do it, it's like an arrow, and it destabilizes their structure. Now they're on their heels. And if you've ever like just stood on both your heels and tried to punch someone, you'll realize that there's just not a lot of energy there. The
Right.
energy comes from kicking from the ground, extending that chi, if you will, through the structure, through your fist, and then it lands in the opponent. And so if you're like falling, it's really hard to do that. And so that's the closest I've ever come to feeling like a wizard is when I push with someone for the first time, they've never done it before, they just crack up. They just laugh
Right.
because they're like, why can't I? They're like, what do you do? Like, what is happening? Right? They have this sort of enlightening moment where they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand. You're barely touching me, but I can't move you. Like, you know, and then they go into like, maybe you're so rooted, or maybe it's you or physically. It's like, no, it's that it doesn't require that much energy to do it right. And in our culture, I feel like we're all like Olympic weightlifters. We're like, if I lift more weight, if I get stronger, if I run faster, then I will, you know. When sometimes, you know, it's just a skill in softness, right? So where it's like, you know, maybe we don't need to drive Hummers, or maybe it's less about tanks and more about drones reseeding. Do you see what I'm saying? So it could still be
Right.
technology, but subtle. It's a seed falling from a drone in a deforested area, as opposed
Right.
to, you know, a tank running through, or some giant farm machinery plowing a field or cutting down a forest.
Well, and this is certainly the wisdom of judo,
Yep.
which is that you take somebody who doesn't know how to do things with, where they are trying to achieve, they've got themselves focused on a goal, okay, which is to hit you in a certain way and knock you down, and you take that energy and you redirect it in ways that frustrate their intention. Bruce Lee was a master of this, in terms of the way that he went about martial arts, okay, which is fluidity and reacting to this situation in a way in which you're in partnership with the person that you're fighting against, okay, and that their denial of themselves, their use of their bodies in ways which destabilize them, is actually your ally in the process of fighting with them. Okay, is that you're understanding how they're using their energy in ways which destabilizes them. Okay, and you stay in fluidity. Muhammad Ali also liked to talk about, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, kind
Mhm.
of a thing. That enormous fluidity, and this is one of the things that I look at Congress right now, and I see Mitch McConnell saying, if I don't get my way, I'm going to blow everything up. Okay, and this is exactly that this idea, which is that I'm constantly going to be beating people down. I'm going to constantly be in charge and in control. I'm never going to be flexible. I'm never going to negotiate. Okay, I'm simply going to blow everything up if you don't give me what I want. And this is one of the fundamental things about 9/11 that I don't think that people really grasped, and we're really struggling with this as a society, which is that 9/11 was about terrorism works. If you can't create something yourself, then you threaten what other people have created. And this has become so deeply internalized in the psychology of our culture, okay, that it is actually at the point where it's going to destroy our culture. If you don't have creative capacities inside of you, the way that you get power is by threatening what other people have created. And the only way to deal with that is to simply ignore it, to say, you're not relevant. Okay, I'm going to take my energy and go someplace else with it. And this
Yeah,
is really,
yeah, I'm reminded of teaching when there's a student that is just losing his mind, and it's all about redirecting that
mhm,
energy as because what confronting it just makes it explode. We could unpack what you just said for the next 2 days.
mhm.
But we are out of time, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Bulke, if you're not entertained, I don't know what's gonna entertain you. Brian, why don't you quickly tell the fine folks where they can reach you, if they wanna work with you, if they wanna do a hypnosis section with you, or session,
Session,
how
yeah.
would they do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm available. can be scheduled on the web at www.hypnosisrisingca.com or hypnosisrising.com. My phone number is 805-775-6716. I do work all over the world via Zoom. I've been in isolation since the pandemic started. But what I find is very interesting about working remotely with people is when they come out of trance, rather than associating that state with my office, they come out of trance in their lived space. And they begin to immediately perceive their lived space with that new perspective that the hypnosis has brought them to. And it really helps them to integrate that transition, that shift in themselves into their daily life. So I'm really enjoying the work, remote work. And if anybody's got any sense that you need to be in person with somebody, I really recommend that you just give it a try.
That's so cool. Ladies and gentlemen, what a treat. Ryan Balke on the show today. A lot of food for thought. Thank you so much. YouTube.com/Send It Rising. You may notice that I'm not live 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every day now. That's because I am more highly producing the show. So if you want to check out multiple camera angles, better video, better audio quality, YouTube.com/Send It Rising is where you do that. If you're listening on iTunes and Spotify, hey guys, I really appreciate your love. And I'm proud of you. Thank you so much. And that is it for the show today. Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cal.